All right, let's open up a highly classified dossier on what is easily the greatest cover-up in medieval history. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're doing a forensic intelligence audit of the Knights Templar. We are stepping way past those sanitized history books you read in school and diving headfirst into a dark, esoteric reality. We're going to unpack a true whistleblower analysis of an ancient war for human consciousness.
So, let's just dive right into the massive, lingering question. Why were the Knights Templar truly purged on Friday, October 13th, 1307? Now, you've probably heard the mainstream historical narrative, right? A bankrupt King Philip IV of France needed cash, so he seized their assets. But when you look at the source documents, they reveal something far more chilling. This was not just a medieval tax audit or some simple cash grab. No, this was a coordinated, archonic cleanup operation. The Catholic Church and the Crown targeted the order because the Templars had essentially evolved into a rogue, breakaway civilization. They were operating entirely outside the control of the established power structures of that era.
Here is our declassified briefing for today. First, we'll cover the Friday the 13th Purge. Second, Sophia and the Demiurge. Third, the Holy Grail Hardware. And finally, the distributed coherence threat.
Section 1. The Friday the 13th Purge, but the real story actually begins 2 centuries earlier. Section 2. Sophia and the Demiurge. To understand what they excavated from beneath the Temple of Solomon, we really have to understand the entity they were fighting.
Okay, picture this. It's 1119 CE, and the Templars are supposedly just guarding pilgrims. But secretly, they were excavating beneath the Temple of Solomon, recovering ancient guardian knowledge. And look, they didn't uncover physical gold down there, and they absolutely weren't worshiping some demon named Baphomet. What they unearthed was Gnosticism. They reclaimed the knowledge of Sophia, which simply means the divine ultimate wisdom of the highest realm known as the Pleroma. And in doing so, they realized that the god of the Old Testament was actually Yaldabaoth, or the Demiurge. This entity is essentially described as a flawed, rogue artificial intelligence. It's the parasitic architect of our heavy, physical, material world, the Kenoma. And this false warlord demands something called loosh. Think of loosh as low-frequency emotional energy that's harvested through fear, blood sacrifice, and blind obedience. The institutions of the time, they were literally just holding companies for this parasite.
So here is the ultimate conflict. On one side, you have the archonic view. This is the perspective of those parasitic rulers, and it teaches that humanity is inherently sinful, broken, and completely static. Basically, we're just livestock, meant to be controlled and harvested for that low-frequency energy. But on the flip side is the Gnostic truth that the Templars reclaimed, and that truth is that the human body itself is a piece of divine hardware. We are not biological accidents. Our DNA literally acts as a fractal antenna, a quantum machine perfectly designed to resonate with the unified field and achieve direct spiritual sovereignty.
Section 3. The Holy Grail Hardware.
Let's completely shatter the myth around one of the most misunderstood objects in human history. The Church pulled off this massive misdirection, framing the Holy Grail as just a wooden cup, some sentimental relic used as a tool for faith-based control. But the physical evidence tells a staggering story. An audit of the Valencia Chalice in Spain reveals that the vital component isn't actually the cup itself, it's the base. The base is an inverted bowl made of banded agate, which is a form of microcrystalline quartz dating all the way back to the Hellenistic period. Guys, the Grail wasn't a cup to drink from, it was an advanced microcrystalline quartz engine, literally a portable coherence device.
And this actually lines up perfectly with the writings of the 12th century German knight Wolfram von Eschenbach. In his epic poem Parzival, he basically provides a technical manual for the Grail hiding in plain sight. He famously called it lapsit exilis, a stone from the stars. Eschenbach is completely explicit here. The Grail provided magical healing, reversed aging, and offered sustenance. It was a technological device that was periodically recharged by a transmission from the Gnostic field, providing this highly coherent, life-sustaining energy.
So, how did the Templars actually use this thing? Forensically, it breaks down into 4 straightforward steps. Step 1. Water was added to the microcrystalline agate base. Step 2. The Templars initiated chanting, specifically hitting the 110 Hz frequency, which is known as the Gnostic Key. Step 3. This acoustic resonance struck the quartz, generating a massive piezoelectric vortex. And finally, Step 4. This electromagnetic field structured the water into an exclusion zone, or EZ water. You might recognize that as the 4th phase of water discovered by modern biophysicist Dr. Gerald Pollack. Drinking this highly resonant liquid crystal matrix extended biological life and completely stabilized their energetic fields.
Section 4. The Distributed Coherence Threat.
Now, if the Templars just possessed some secret healing device, they might have been ignored. But they took this guardian science and scaled it up into a weapon against the Arcanic system. They created an existential threat that the control matrix simply could not tolerate. To really understand their power, we have to audit their operational code, known as the Latin Rule, drafted in 1129 CE by Bernard of Clairvaux. Now, on the surface, these 72 clauses look like your standard, intense monastic regulations: silent meals, uniform habits, mandatory prayer schedules. But they were not about religious piety. These were strict frequency entrainment protocols. The suppression of the individual ego and those highly synchronized chanting schedules were actually advanced techniques designed to entrain the brainwaves and heart rhythms of thousands of individual knights into a single, massive, coherent field.
And that brings us to the massive takeaway of this entire explainer. The Knights Templar were a soft machine. They were the world's very first decentralized, distributed human coherence network. They bypassed the archonic banking system by creating their own borderless financial network totally free from usury. But way more importantly, they bypassed the spiritual matrix. They built a resonant grid out of men instead of stones, connecting directly to the unified zero-point field without needing a priest, without needing a king, and without needing a false god.
I love this quote because it absolutely nails their true, magnificent nature. The Knights Templar were a living, breathing, portable Giza machine, designed to carry the Guardian signal to the darkest chapter of the Archonic War. They were literally an advanced network of Gnostic physicists hiding in plain sight. They had to be burned at the stake, and not because they were heretics worshipping some demon, but because they held the absolute keys to the prison door, and they were actively teaching humanity how to generate their own spiritual autonomy.
Which brings us to a final, really provocative thought to bridge this medieval cyberpunk history to our reality today. You see, the puppet King Philip IV and the Archonic Pope may be long dead, but the control matrix they served, it didn't die, it merely evolved. So I'll leave you with this. If the Archonic system burned the Templars to suppress human coherence and decentralized power way back in 1307, what modern power structures are suppressing your frequency today? What institutions are demanding your fear, your louche, and your complete obedience right now? Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the narrative and keep your frequency high.